Hello everyone, Miff here. Welcome back to my Completionist, Purist, insane playthrough of Icewind Dale. My mood is serious, because in today's episode, we will surely feel the painful consequences of our difficulty settings in full force, as we are about to embark on our first real adventure, into our first mini-dungeon, you could say. We have some very tough fights ahead of us, but before that, let's explore the interior of the Snowdrift Inn and make our final preparations for the upcoming trials and tribulations. So first let's talk with the proprietor of the inn, Quimby. He will be elated to see some new customers, something there's apparently been a shortage of as of late. He will of course mention Eravane staying at the inn, the elven adventurer we've heard much about previously. But when it comes to any new information Quimby can provide us with, it's him who mentions that Acalia will be joining Hrothgar's expedition, and apparently even Pomab has agreed to go. So this is shaping up to be a grand adventure indeed. But that's it for Quimby for now. However, upon hearing of Eravane's presence, Asathi of course will be very excited to finally meet him, her fellow kinsman. And as is usually the case, Bray in the meantime will occupy herself with snooping around the place. And when it comes to Eravane's conversation, there's actually quite a bit that goes into it, even though it might not seem like much on the surface. First off, there are these two initial conversation paths that we can go down. However, they are not available anymore once we have already talked to Eravane, so we cannot revisit those topics. So of course there's going to be some screenshots involved here, presenting this remark about the icy climate, the chilly weather. Eravane doesn't seem to fancy much. But I'm going to go with the custom elven greeting that is available to Asathi, saying, "Well met, brother. How goes your journey?" And he will, of course, describe his life as an adventurer and say that he's glad he didn't go on the retreat 20 years ago. And if you arrive at this conversation point with a non-elf character, you will actually be able to ask what the retreat is. However, here there's one conversation option that I want to discuss a little bit. This one. Because not only is it quite unhinged and funny in itself, but what's interesting about it is that with all the focus in this game on the particular requirements for certain conversation options to appear or to be successful, be it attributes or having the right alignment, this one doesn't have any requirements whatsoever. So even if you're a lawful good paladin, you can say this. Which is either a really funny oversight or maybe the way from the developers to show us that there is some darkness in all of us. Everyone has to battle some intrusive thoughts now and then. But we are going to go about this conversation in a much more pleasant way, of course. Eravane will talk about the expedition a little bit, saying that he will not join himself. And he will have some general, profound life advice for us, saying that adventure can leap out at you in the most unlikely form and at the most unexpected time. Giving us a little bit of a foreshadowing, perhaps, of what might await us in this game a little bit later. But whenever we're ready to say our goodbyes to Eravane, he will have this to say, where in a classic RPG fashion he sensed during his travels here in the north that something was not right, especially in the area of Kuldahar. It's more than just the weather that bothered me. Something seemed amiss in the mountains, the trees, even the clouds in the sky. Something was out of place. Something was wrong. Well, I'm not sure the inhabitants of Kuldahar would appreciate you having such opinions about their home, but of course there is some weight to what he says, and if we are in the conversation with a character that has at least 10 wisdom, like Asathi, we will actually have an alternative way of saying our goodbyes to Eravane, actually agreeing with his thoughts. I can't quite put my finger on it, but yes, something's been odd about the weather. Be careful in your travels. Farewell. And one more thing to mention is that Eravane is a character that has some ties to a person we know from Baldur's Gate 1, but I will leave it at that for now, because of course there is more to Eravane than just this conversation. But most importantly, in not so serious manner, of course, the most notable thing about this conversation is its humorous Easter egg quality when conducted by a character with low mental stats. And there are slight differences in terms of the values needed for particular responses, making this dialogue have a few variations. But for the most deranged one, I guess, you need to have all 3 mental attributes at no higher than 5. So intelligence, wisdom, and charisma all need to be that low for a certain Blade Singer remark to be available. And the whole thing isn't that well written, but it's an interesting addition, kind of a reenactment of how Nuber or Nieber would likely behave upon seeing an elf. But anyway, it makes me wonder whether the developers perhaps had some more plans for such conversations that ultimately didn't make it, or whether it was always just meant to be a one-of type of joke. And whatever the case might be, since we're on the topic, I feel a quick shout out here is necessary to the first 2 Fallout games that largely pioneered that sort of thing. Interactions and whole situations playing out differently for characters of limited mental acuity, let's say. Particularly Fallout 2, which I think is still to this day unmatched when it comes to delivering a complete, comprehensive experience for that kind of protagonist. So if you ever feel like trying out something new, especially if you like Fallout 2 already and know how the quests and events normally transpire, I would highly recommend making a character with an intelligence of 1 and having a go at it. Plenty of cool surprises and lots of humor await you there. But going back to our game, as our 2 elven companions are enthralled in their conversation, Bray, of course, will search around certain containers. This one is, of course, empty, but the other 2 that we will have to first unlock will have some minor treasures, like this 13 gold, and the one in Eravain's room will contain a gem that sells for 20 gold here or for 24 gold later. So, of course, it will be justifiable to her. In her mind, no one will really miss a few gold pieces here or a gem there. It's all good. We, of course, need some resources to start our own adventures for the greater good. And now we are basically ready with the contents, or done with the contents of the Snowdrift Inn, and are ready to rest. And in between episodes, I've already switched some spell selections of our party members. So here you will not be able to see that well the particular spells because they're all grayed out, but there will be both Bless and Curse in Galburin's selection. Asathi will have 2 Sun Scorches and a spare heal, and Nadimastria will have 2 Color Sprays. And with all that, now we are ready to rent a room from Quimby and have our rest finally. And we'll go for the merchant room and slightly higher quality. Don't be bothered by the rats. It's all fine. Those are high quality rooms. And I let that cutscene play out in its entirety this one time, but of course later on in the playthrough I will skip those. However, before we truly set out on our adventure, we have to still make a quick stop at Pomab's to sell off that junk we got from the goblin encounter from the previous episode and get a few important purchases. Of course, speaking about that encounter, the random drop didn't treat us particularly well, so of course we still have to purchase a suit of armor for Galburin. First, let's get rid of all these basic weapons. As you can see, both daggers and battle axes sell for only 1 gold. The high quality dagger has a slightly better price, but I'm mentioning these battle axes here because there is going to be a lot of them to pick up in the upcoming adventure, but I will not do so because they are quite heavy with that weight of 7, and they are just not worth it, as you can see with this meager return and our limited carrying capabilities. And still here we will sell these 3 short bows, even though the temple can give us a slightly better price on the short bows, but that is why we are going to sell the much bigger batch of short bows that we will acquire over the course of this next adventure. We will be able to sell all of those for 9 gold then, and here we still need a few more gold pieces. So after making those transactions, let's get that splint mail and perhaps a few more darts, let's say 2 stacks. And now we will be equipped. Our Galburin will finally don a suit of armor, making him much better protected against enemy attacks. 1 stack of darts was actually going to go to Rintar, and the other one we can give to Nadimastria, so that her supply can be a little bit better. And now we will be ready to embark on that adventure. And continue the main storyline of this prologue section of the game. And here we will be met with immediate resistance, so let's activate our song and let's switch to some ranged weapons on most of our party members, and then we will have Rintar march onwards. Now that we have the song buff, and unfortunately we will have some wildlife, a couple of wolfies to dispose of. And here I will kite them a little bit, not to sustain any unnecessary damage that we absolutely cannot afford to sustain from such like melee opponents that we can easily avoid. And in role-playing terms this can be justified, I guess, or explained in a way that Rintar was employing a very avoidant and defensive battle stance here, not launching any attacks of his own, but just deflecting and avoiding and blocking all of the attempts of his enemies, leading them on and leaving them exposed to the fire of our other party members. And now with this simple encounter done, let us press on. And here there's this orc in the Enhanced Edition. He usually has some problems with doing what he's supposed to do, and he's just going to disappear, despawn in a couple of seconds. And because normally in the classic Icewind Dale he would walk back to the cave, seeing the approach of our party and wanting to warn the other orcs inside, I guess. But here we might be able to snipe him if we get some decent attacks in. Okay, we got a crit there that sealed the deal. And here just to showcase that, you know, they don't give too much experience on their own, but there's going to be quite a few of the orcs awaiting us inside, and they will all have a little bit of gold and those battle axes that we will not be picking up, like I explained. But here let me stop for a moment and highlight something interesting, because of course we have found this lost caravan that we were tasked to look for by Hrothgar. And of course our main quest from him about finding the caravan has two possible endings based on how far we progress in our search. And the first one of them is available already here. We have found the wagons, these carts here, and if we wanted, we could go back and report that to him, finishing the quest in the process and being able to advance into the next part of the main storyline. This is because there is a quest trigger on the ground here in the passage, which unlocks that outcome. It's the worst of the two outcomes, and it rewards less experience, but it is an interesting option left by the developers, allowing the players to essentially skip this adventure altogether if they want. And so depending on your situation, your settings, your party composition, and so on, you can totally decide to just leave here and spare yourself the hardships of this place, or to just progress the game faster. That would of course involve losing out on 2/3 of the total possible quest experience, as well as the experience and loot provided by defeating the opponents, but that's nothing major in the grand scheme of things, and with the exception of one possible random drop, it can all be compensated for later on. Of course, we as completionists would never contemplate such a course of action, and even more so, we would not besmirch the honor of Sir Rintar and his party by even suggesting that kind of thing. But it is a cool and well thought out option to deliberately provide that kind of avenue to the players, I think. And one of the likely reasons for this option is the fact that on Insane, this place can be brutal. And I mean brutal, with an umlaut in there. That's how bad it is. And in some ways, when using settings like ours, there are some of the most difficult fights awaiting us inside, when looking at them from the perspective of basically being at the brink of death at all times. We of course didn't benefit from the doubled experience present on Insane, which would normally get all of our characters to at least level 2, and that would be a massive help in a lot of respects, but we have to press on. And a final thing before we go inside, this is an appropriate time to mention a certain defensive mechanism present in the Infinity Engine games that will protect our characters from dying in one hit most of the time. There are a few specific conditions for it to work, but the two most important ones are, first, it only pertains to our characters and not the enemies, and second, it will only work if the maximum HP of a character is 13 or less. So once they reach 14 and higher, it will not activate anymore. Therefore, this is an early game mechanic that we will outscale soon, but at this point it might help us here and there. Well, of course with our hit point rolls so far, we might not outscale it that soon, but We'll see. It will happen eventually. Now, how it works is that any single hit that deals more damage than the maximum HP of a character will be reduced to deal 1 less than the maximum, so that character survives with 1 HP. And so for Rintar, who has 10 HP, 10 maximum health, if any attack inflicts more than 10 damage, it will be reduced to just 9. And it will be reflected in the Icewind Dale combat log, showing that the damage wasn't exactly doubled, but only increased to that allowed amount. Now, I was being quite specific when saying that the damage has to exceed the maximum HP of a character, because there is one exception. If a hit deals exactly the amount of damage equal to the character's maximum HP, there will be no reduction. So if something hits Rintar for precisely 10 damage, he will still die in 1 hit. Therefore, this is not a 100% fail-safe protection, just something that will make it less likely for our characters to die from a one-shot. And this is precisely one of the reasons why I will use Galburin as our main decoy for some fights here, as he has 11 HP, and that is very relevant, because the opponents have no way to deal exactly 11 damage to him, only 10 or 12, which will then be reduced to 10, because that's 1 less than his maximum. Of course, one final thought about this whole mechanic is that there can still be plenty of situations where we can get bursted down by 2 or more hits in quick succession that will bring anyone down near instantly, but at least we have something going in our favor here, especially if we can keep our guys at full health by being fast enough with our potions of healing. But now, before we go inside, let us activate Rintar's protection from evil. This will last him for the entirety of this adventure, and it will make him more avoidant, because, of course, all of the orcs inside are evil aligned. So their attacks will be less likely to hit him. And as Matron Mother Argilus used to say, we have to be cautious, ever cautious. And that is especially the case in these early encounters here. So now let's do more of the same, deal with these melee orcs the same way we have dealt with those wolves, with Rintar being very avoidant. Apparently one of these guys, though, wants to approach Galburin already. So we will have to do some 2-character kiting, I guess. We don't really want to go too far up north, because there are more orcs awaiting us there, of course. So let's try to do this. Let's try to do this nicely, without any unnecessary damage. Okay, now Rintar, I guess, can switch to these darts. They are more expendable than these, I guess, more precious throwing axes. And we will have to switch to Galburin being at the decoy here anyway, because fights from now on are going to involve some archers, sometimes in great numbers. And they are, of course, much more dangerous than just these melee guys, because we cannot really kite them too well. So there is a real possibility of our characters receiving damage, and like I explained, that 11 HP, that uneven amount, is really significant here on Galburin. Alright, and of course quick loot will also shine in this game, as we will see already during this adventure quite a bit. But now let us also transfer some healing potions to Galburin, and proceed further north, and get this next group going. And the archer that's up there will join us shortly, but at least we can start attacking these guys already. Okay, nice. Some crits sealed the deal again, but now we have to switch our attention to this archer. And I'm going to, of course, get Galburin in his face, just so that he has this big penalty to his Thaco while trying to shoot a target that's like right up there in his melee range. Alright, nice. No unpleasant surprises so far. These archers will all have the short bows that we will keep collecting, as well as these short swords. They're not, of course, as heavy as something like a battle axe, and they will sell for slightly more. And of course, those are also armaments that Bray will enjoy very much. Finally, she will have her melee weapon of choice, and I think she will also be in charge of carrying all of those short bows. Now let's do the last kind of small encounter here. We can pull 2 guys here that are not connected to the larger encounter that's beyond this corridor. Okay, nice. And this passage is just a dead end that you can sometimes use for some tactics, but I don't like this one as a hiding place for any kiting endeavors because the lines of sight here are quite wide and it doesn't really work that well. For tactics where, for example, you can use Entangle to slow down their advance, and the ones that trickle through, that save and keep pursuing you wherever you want to kite, you know, you will be able to then face them in smaller numbers. But I much prefer this place here to hide the party over here, because those two corners are much sharper. So whenever they arrive here and in your vision, they are going to be much closer for your whole party to just engage them immediately. And that is significant because now this is one of the two main encounters in this place, and this is the archer heavy encounter. But before we really talk about tactics and this battle, let me get back to Hrothgar's quest for just a moment, because here we are already coming upon another quest trigger being on the ground here at the end of this corridor. Just stepping over there will activate the best outcome of Hrothgar's quest, giving us the full 2400 experience. So, as weird as it is, it's not needed to progress deep into the cave at all. I guess the role-playing explanation is that you can kind of see the crates with goods the caravan was transporting from over there, from that end of that corridor, but the conversation with Hrothgar about wiping out the orcs certainly wouldn't be true. There would still be plenty of them left alive. And what's better is that you can use stealth or spells like the Cleric's Sanctuary to step on that trigger without being noticed and leave without doing any fighting whatsoever. A Cleric of level 2 will have Sanctuary lasting long enough that you can cast it before entering the cave, then go immediately to step on the trigger and escape outside before it expires, so you can do it with literally 0 violence. By the way, I'm not mentioning invisibility, as it's clearly not been available yet, but if you have an imported character with that spell, that of course would work too. This outcome still misses out on a certain quest-related item for another 1200 experience that's located much deeper in the cave, as well as most of the experience and loot coming from exploring the place completely, defeating all the enemies and whatnot, but it remains a slightly more juicy alternative that squeezes out a bit more quest experience compared to abandoning the quest at that first opportunity we had outside. However, even without such tricks, there is yet another way to go about this. After fighting your way up here normally, just like we did, you can go back to Hrothgar, get the full experience for his quest, plus another 1200 for an easy follow-up quest, and then go back to the cave to clear it out, having the benefit of some more level ups on your characters. And that would actually be a perfect way of doing things for us to get some of our guys to the next level. Like Rintar here is closing in on level 2, and Asathi is even closer. So that would actually be quite nice for us, but of course we will not do that. We want to do this adventure in one go without resting or returning midway. However, that's a very viable option you might want to take advantage of. And now when it comes to this upcoming fight, there will be a lot of guys, especially on our settings, because here it's the first fight where there's going to be a difference between core and the insane version of this encounter. So on core, the normal set of enemies is they have 1 shaman, they have 4 archers, and 2 melee orcs, one of them normal and the other one being elite. And these elites are significant. They will be both like this one melee elite, but most other elites are going to be archers, which makes them even more dangerous. But they are significant not only because of their higher stats, like they have better armor class, more hit points and all that, but especially so, like the most notable thing about them is that they are actually level 2 and not level 1, like the rest of the opponents. And that of course means that in the context of our collar spray and Nadimastria only being level 1 still, they of course will not only have the opportunity to make a saving throw against that spell, but also, even if it works, it will only blind them for 3 rounds and will not knock them down unconscious. It will not put them into that sleep status effect. So that of course is a little worse for us as well. But anyway, so those are the 7 guys that are normally present in the encounter. But then hard difficulty already adds 1 additional normal archer, and then insane adds 2 elite archers on top of all that. So we will have to defeat 10 guys instead of 7. 7 of those guys are going to be archers. So yeah, that it can be argued that this is actually the tougher encounter, especially since there's not a lot of room to work with. The battlefield where they are located is quite open, and they kind of wait at us in an arc, trying to lure us into their trap. he just sits there in an arc. But anyway, we will counter their tactics with our own trap that we will set for them. So here, let's just position ourselves a little bit better here. Quite far in this corridor. And yeah, when it comes to available tactics, there's quite a few of them. Of course, under normal circumstances, when playing on like core difficulty with an optimal party, you just go in there and defeat them without breaking a sweat. But when it comes to us, we actually do need to think about what we want to do. Especially since, of course, we only have this one set of spells. So we not only need to do this encounter in some kind of a safe way, ideally, but also one that doesn't deplete a lot of our spells already. So there's quite a few options here available. Like I mentioned, these kiting opportunities and all that, but I thought I would go for a more entertaining option and try to showcase the juiciness of color spray. And we'll see how this will work, depending on how they bunch up here. It's not going to be an extensive kiting endeavor or anything like that. But we are not only going to use color spray, although it will be our main spell, but we will also do something else. Here we will buff up everybody with Bless. And this is a basic, nice buffing spell. And before we really discuss it, let's just talk about this morale that it increases by 1. Morale is a sub-mechanic present in the Infinity Engine games, but it's basically irrelevant in Icewind Dale, almost completely, because every creature, every living creature basically has morale as a hidden value at all times. And it is affected by actions in combat. Most notably, it goes down when receiving damage or when seeing your comrades die around you. And if it gets low enough to reach its break value, also different for different creatures, it will result in loss of control through panic or berserk. And of course, we've seen that happen to our enemies in Baldur's Gate. But when it comes to Icewind Dale, why it doesn't matter for us, first of all, is that all self-made characters in these games have a morale break value of 0, which means their morale never breaks. They will never falter in that way. And of course, in Baldur's Gate, that's typically just your protagonist, but all of the recruitable companions do have each their own morale break values. But of course, here in Icewind Dale, our whole party is self-made, so we don't have to ever worry about that kind of thing. And when it comes to enemies, their starting morale and morale break values are so far apart that it rarely ever comes into play that they will panic or go berserk. And I think it was done deliberately, with, considering the format of encounters in Icewind Dale, having so many creatures, so that those encounters can play out as intended, instead of like half of them panicking after, we kill the first half of their companions. So yeah, essentially a dead mechanic. It's sometimes, in very few encounters, someone might panic, but generally it's this property here we don't have to really consider too much. However, the main component of Bless is that it increases our Thaco and damage by 1. And that's pretty cool, not only because, of course, we really do need buffs, as many buffs as we can get for our general combat performance, but especially such flat damage bonuses that are non-strength related are pretty cool for many characters like archers, who, besides launchers and ammunition, have a very limited, and I guess specialization in their chosen weapon. They have very limited ways of increasing their damage further. And it's also very nice for backstabbing, because these non-strength damage boosts do get multiplied by the backstab multiplier. And then Bless is also nice to discuss already in the context of an upcoming random drop that we will talk about in this episode, but that will come a little bit later. And now also one other spell that I would like to already present is Curse, which is supposed to be kind of an opposite to Bless. It's not the exact reverse, but it is a debuff that works on enemies, and it decreases their Thaco by 1 as well as their saving throws. So not damage, but saving throws, which of course makes it useful not only as a general combat debuff, but also in spell combos to make those spells more likely to work. And of course the downsides of both of those spells is their atrocious casting time. You basically have to spend the whole round casting them, and then they also have a set quite short duration of only 6 rounds. That's the same case for both Curse and Bless. So we are going to have to make a couple of these initial rounds in this encounter work. We have to make the most of it, because the timing of these buffs is of course very limited. However, now that we do have Bless on ours, it's kind of cool to discuss one weapon type in particular that benefits quite a bit from this spell. Okay, Asathi got it as well. She was standing a little further away, so this effect was placed on her a split second later. However, I wanted to mention darts, because of course, even though they deal minimal damage of just from 1 to 3, they do benefit incredibly from these flat damage bonuses, like our Ballad of 3 Heroes that Iris basically sings all the time, and then Bless on top of that. And they of course have a base number of attacks of 3 per round, which is great. And now basically with those 2 flat damage bonuses, we went from an average damage of 2 to an average damage of 4. Because here with them we're dealing from 3 to 5 damage. So we doubled our damage output of a dart thrower like Asathi. So quite a dramatic boost, and that's pretty nice. And finally we are going to use this level 1 divine single target protection from evil on Galburin. He's going to cast it on himself. It's going to only last 6 rounds as well, because of course he's level 2. So this is to make him more avoidant, and when discussing those all of those archers, of course we have to talk about their missile damage and how we kind of stack up against it. So first let's present splint mails that both Rintar and Galburin are wearing, and of course they actually offer a slightly better armor class against piercing and missile attacks, and Galburin can also benefit from this extra +1 missile attacks armor class that his large shield is providing him with. So even though he has that bad dexterity and that -1 armor class penalty coming from it, his general armor class against missile damage has this boost of 2. And then when we further boost him by that protection from evil, the orcs with their 19 Thaco will basically only score hits against him at 19 or 20. So they're essentially going to have 10% chance of hitting him, which is the best that we can do. So yes, now let's buff Galburin with this spell, and let's go and activate that encounter finally. Alright, here's the melee orc elite with his orcish battle cry that will signal all of the other orcs to come forth and join the attack. I'm just going to keep retreating a little bit, and then once they bunch up nicely, let's go back with Galburin, making sure that he is the one taking their attention, and then we will also proceed forward with Nadimastria, because she is the most important element in this in our tactics here, besides Galburin being a very important decoy, of course. So yeah, there's quite a few of them. These shamans, by the way, the only spells they cast is that curse that we've just discussed. Also because of, that's their spell of choice. So just a general combat debuff they want to apply to us. And now let's aim a juicy color spray at them. Let's bring Galburin a little bit back so that he doesn't get caught in it. And now, boom, that was quite juicy. All of the level 1 opponents did get knocked down, and these archer elites from back there got blinded. So they're, of course, their shooting abilities are going to be disabled for 3 rounds, so we can count them out of the encounter for just a little bit. And now when it comes to this Orc Elite, he is actually near death. He has quite a good armor class, but we must have had some pretty good rolls to inflict some damage on him. So let's actually continue. Let's just finish him off to just have him dealt with, perhaps. But we also only have 5 rounds now to defeat all of those opponents knocked unconscious. And unfortunately, there seems to be one of those normal archer orcs that lagged behind and didn't quite join his comrades here at this choke point. So he is actually going to be operational. And that is why we have the backups in the form of these Sun Scorches. We can aim a particular Sun Scorch at these orcs that weren't otherwise crowd controlled to, of course, blind them, have a chance to blind them with that Sun Scorch, and hopefully take him out of the encounter, nullify his threat for the moment. Okay, this guy died, so let's actually spread out our guys. Well, we have to just get Bray to attack this guy maybe, and Nadimastria is going to be attacking only these disabled targets. And actually a slight correction about attacking those like helpless crowd-controlled targets like them. The chance of a critical miss doesn't play a role in that situation. There was a comment about it that made me check and test that mechanic once again. And indeed, those are true automatic hits with no further disclaimer needed. So just something to point out there. Let's also move forward with Iris being the beacon of our song. This normal orc also came closer. Alright, this guy got blinded, which is nice. He didn't save against it. And let's now keep attacking various targets. Okay, I guess... Well, now everyone except Nadimastria, I guess, should take out this guy. Alright, these guys are actually coming closer. Of course, they cannot use their ranged attacks because they don't see anything. They will just wander around until they stumble upon someone in their immediate vision range. But even then, blindness is a really cool and powerful combat debuff, because that will bestow them with a -4 penalty to their armor class and their Thaco. So even if they do stumble into somebody else, we should have a significantly easier time to take them out, considering those combat buffs. So seeing how they are approaching us anyway, let's just try to get rid of them, and Nadimastria will finish off this last unconscious guy. Okay, keep going there, my guys. Also, if we proceed too far north here, there's also 2 other melee guys that can join the encounter. Alright, his blindness perhaps dissipated, or he just now saw Galburin in his melee range. I'm not sure if there's any other guys. I'm not hearing their footsteps, which you can sometimes identify them, of course, wandering around. Sometimes they can wander off quite far away, but it seems like we are in the clear. Whew, that is a huge relief, because this can be such a tough encounter.
I'll handle it.
We didn't even get hit once, which is quite nice. Now I'm just going to pick up all of these things and then distribute them a little bit differently, I guess. And the long swords that will sometimes show up, we will carry as well. So I think these melee weapons will go to Galburin. The short bows will go to Bray. You have to distribute the weight nicely between all of our guys. I can stash these gems while I'm thinking about it. And did we have anything else there to pick up? Doesn't seem like it. Alright, so here are the crates with the goods apparently intact. They haven't been opened yet, so we can actually rescue the contents of that caravan as well. So this trigger being, this quest ground trigger being here kind of at the end of this corridor, you could argue that maybe from there you can see the crates, which would activate that best outcome of Hrothgar's quest, but it's still quite weird that it's so early in the cave. Actually, you don't really have to explore it in its entirety at all to get that best reward from that quest. Alright, there was of course that one crate that has 2 more gems for us and a scroll of protection from petrification that will not come into play for a long time. Okay, there was that one elite archer that actually wandered off all the way to the north, so he is going to be our priority target here. That's unfortunate because, oh, nice crit from Braid, just takes him out. I think they have 14 HP, so as you can see they are not immune to our not immune to being one-shot, although I think he might have been hit by somebody else as well. Okay, and here's the archer that's normally stationed there because I went too far in his direction with Galburin. Actually, let's switch the target to him, because of course he is way more dangerous than this guy that we can just kite. And of course here, you know, Galburin, just the same as Rintar, he saw that fighting style being very effective against these enemies, so he's been employing that as well in his own defensive battle stance. Okay, as you can see we can scavenge a lot of these shortbows, maybe even this we can give to Iris, these wolf pelts. And I say pelts because there's going to be more of them. And now let's go directly to the location of the random drop, because it might be something that will help us in the other fights that are still left here. Alright, so here there's only 3 melee guys. We don't have to be, well, hopefully too worried about doing anything stupid here, even though the kiting space is a little bit limited. Alright, nice. And this chest you see over here contains our random drop. So let's discuss the potential contents of that chest. Again, kind of listing them in a way that would be best for us, I guess from best to worst. And the first one is a girdle of beatification. That's a belt that confers the bless effect upon the wearer. So as we've discussed, quite a nice basic buff of +1 Thaco and +1 damage. And I classify it as the best drop here for many reasons. First off, it's the most unique and provides that nice combat effectiveness boost. And it has the greatest longevity, because even as we go through the game and acquire more belts later on, it will always be useful on someone relevant. It's always going to be beneficial in a meaningful way for some kind of attacker, some kind of physical damage combatant that will just always have that nice combat boost on him. Because as we've seen, Bless only lasts for 6 rounds. That's its major downside, but with this item, on one combatant, we can have this effect active permanently. Then the second best drop, in my opinion, is the Ring of Protection +1. Just your standard item of protection, giving a boost of 1 to armor class and saving throws. Those items of protection, of course, are not possible to be combined with magically enchanted armors, which is something that we will go back to discussing in a moment. But of course, this is still a very, very nice, universally useful item with a little bit less longevity, because of course later on it will be replaced by better items of protection, or it will just be incompatible with some really good magically enchanted armors. Because the format of armors, the kind of protection format of gear that we're used to from Baldur's Gate, where it was almost always a very high quality non-magical armor, like a full plate, for example, combined with a good item of protection, this is not so much the case in Icewind Dale. Items of protection are not as prevalent, are not as plentiful, and there are magical armors that are just more relevant. They are better in many ways than their non-enchanted competition, I guess. So quite more often you just end up having a magically enchanted armor equipped than it was the case in Baldur's Gate. And those 2 drops, by the way, are also the best when it comes to their selling price, because they both sell for over 2,000 gold. So they are also premium drops in that regard. Those are by far the best. Now, a step further down the ranks, there will be a Ring of Lesser Resistance, which gives a +2 boost to the wearer's save versus spell. This is more situational. It's not always going to be relevant. This is not Baldur's Gate, but it is of course a good increase to an important save, and you can combine it with a magically enchanted armor. So that's a nice boost that will come into play often, and you don't have to think about your gear composition quite so much. And then we have a big step down for the last two drops. The slightly better of which is the Quiet Boots, even though they are horrible, especially on this version of the Infinity engine. They were weak originally in Icewind Dale, the classic one, because they only provided you with a 7% boost to your stealth. And stealth on the original version of the engine in classic Icewind Dale and Baldur's Gate 1 was the only skill responsible for sneaking around without being noticed, but here stealth got split into two skills, move silently and hide in shadows. So unfortunately, these Quiet Boots, in this version of the engine, they got implemented really badly because they only give you a 7% boost to your move silently, which is essentially 3.5% stealth in general. So, just so bad. It's just such a tiny irrelevant boost that it's not really going to matter, even if you have that kind of backstabbing thief that you're focusing on that stealthy part of their gameplay. However, it still retains some selling potential. In the best place that we can actually sell it, it goes for 890 gold, because there are some pretty good vendors that accept miscellaneous items like boots, so we can still squeeze out some monetary value out of it, almost 900 gold. And then, dead last, I consider the Fire Dagger +1. It might sound nice because it's a magically enchanted weapon, but it's really unimpressive. First of all, it's yet another dagger, so not powerful to begin with, and something that we've had in abundance already. It gives a +2 boost to Thaco, no boost to physical damage, and just a small chance of dealing some fire damage. And you might think that +1 enchantment could be relevant. Those weapons had great value in Baldur's Gate, a much more open game where sometimes they would allow you to perhaps tackle some places a little bit earlier with creatures that require magically enchanted weaponry to be hurt, to get some nice bonuses then, some nice treasures, and so on. However, in a more linear game like Icewind Dale, it's not going to be so relevant, especially since before such creatures come into play, there will be better guaranteed alternatives that we will get, some better +1 enchanted weapons. So, and this one, the Fire Dagger, also sells by far the worst because it's worth only 125 gold. So, just terrible in every aspect, basically. And you know what I'm afraid of here? I'm not going to say it out loud. Let's just look at it as an opportunity for the game to redeem itself after all the unfavorable RNG we've experienced so far. And with an open mind, let us open the chest. Son of a... Behind this screen of glass do I weep and rage. Oh man, of course we got the dagger. Of course that's what happens. And you know, we have a dedicated worshipper of Tamora in our party, Iris. And we still can't catch a break. Like, doesn't that count for something? Isn't that enough for you, Tamora? Alright, that's gonna be a big hit to our morale. A great disappointment. Man, I didn't quite hope for the Girdle of Beatification exactly, but like anything, man. The other four that could serve as either gold or some kind of a nice boost. Already, from now on, we could use a Ring of Protection. Oh, man. With that Ring of Protection, actually, the orcs would only be able to then hit our party members only on critical hits on rolls of 20, which would be nice. Would provide us another layer of survivability, but, well, somehow we have to find the strength to carry on. So, no help for the remaining encounters. Let's just keep clearing them. Actually, maybe let's try to snipe that shaman first, because of course, as always, we can just kite the melee guys. Okay, we interrupted his spell. I haven't yet used Rintar's Smite Evil, which is a really good spell for that kind of purpose, to quickly interrupt spellcasters, but as you can see, that wasn't too necessary. Even if they get their curse off, it's not that big of a deal. Although, of course, you know, that would make us even less effective in combat. Okay, guys, if you feel like it, we could start attacking and get some hits in. But yeah, it's not the end of the world if they get that spell off. But I'm also holding off on that Smite Evil for that last encounter, just for its damage component. It's not going to be very spectacular tactics-wise, I guess, but it might be the little damage boost we need to finish off an archer, an elite orc. Oh, nice. Nice crits again. Let's just distract that orc to just keep on following us, and finally we do get that killing blow. Alright, and some more gold for our troubles, and now we are almost up to that last encounter. There's going to be one more smaller group. This one has an archer, fortunately, with them. Okay, he actually blocked the way for these melee guys, but we can't really get into his face with Galburin too much. Oh man. Let's just move away. Let's just do this steadily, methodically. Ooh, there was a screen shake for the crit, so I stayed with Bray, but I saw that he switched target to her.
Ready, got it.
I'll take care of it.
Yeah, it is Bray that's being attacked.
Of course.
We have to kite with our main damage dealer, unfortunately, which is not too optimal. You can see how our damage suffers immediately when she is not shooting any of her arrows. Alright guys, whenever you feel ready for some attacks to finally hit, I would appreciate that. And then, there it is. Okay, the last few drops, and now we are coming upon the final encounter, kind of the boss encounter of this mini dungeon. Let us distribute our stuff here. Our inventory slots are getting filled up. This is just a silver necklace, and here we can actually identify the fire dagger with Iris's lore already. So we have +2 Thaco, no physical damage boost, 15% chance of dealing some fire damage. Oh man, and unfortunately it's not going to sell for much either, so dang. Anyway, here we are going to switch Galburin to a ranged weapon, and Rintar will be our main decoy. This is the final fight. Even if Rintar gets one shot, we should be able to recover from that. You know, here, if we are going to lose someone, then, you know, so be it. This is the final fight. Let's just position accordingly. And this is also done because Galburin will have another important spell to cast. And so yeah, just behind this corner there is the final fight, and it normally contains on core difficulty, and because this is the second fight that's affected by our difficulty settings. On core though, it has 2 archers, 4 melee orcs, and an ogre, kind of a boss monster. And now just to cut things short to Insane, on Insane there are 4 ogres. Because hard difficulty adds 1 ogre and 1 elite archer, and then Insane adds another 2 ogres and another elite archer. So the difference is 3 ogres and 2 elite archers, making it 12 enemies in total instead of 7. And we have 4 of each. 4 ogres, 4 melee orcs, and 4 archers. Oh man, 2 of them being elite. So this is quite a heavy prospect here to get this fight done. So we will need some buffs again. We have this Bless to increase our fighting effectiveness, and we're also going to use Curse just to make these archers, who are surely going to get stuck here when bunching up, to make them less effective with their attacks, to hopefully only have a chance to crit on our guys, to hit them successfully. On our main guys, I guess, our main decoys. But anyway, let's bunch up for our own Bless here. I don't think there's anything else to say about this encounter. Well, maybe just, you know, something that I maybe didn't explicitly say, but of course we cannot possibly engage the opponents straight up. We would be torn apart by the ogres and the archers, so of course we have to use some finesse. We have to use some crowd control, another hopefully juicy color spray that will help us a lot. We still have that sleep as a backup on Iris. We have 1 more Sun Scorch, and we're going to have the Bless and Curse combat buffs, and well, let's see how this goes. Can you feel the final fight approaching? I can feel the nerves. Okay, there they are. I'm not going to peek any further in there. Well, maybe, okay, just making sure that they are following us. And once they do, let us start casting Curse in the location of where they are going to get clogged a little bit. So maybe move Anadimas just slightly to the side, and then have Rintar ready. Okay, since there's a melee orc approaching, we can already start shooting him. Maybe we can get some hits in. Okay, maybe a nice crit from Bray. Okay, Asathi actually crit, but he went down earlier than it was needed. Anyway, let us continue fighting. Let's just kite with Rintar. We really would like to have some ogres to approach. There's one archer already shooting at us, but we really want to catch as many of these ogres in our color spray as humanly possible, because they are also just level 1, so they will be completely disabled, and we're just going to be able to rip them to shreds ourselves when they can't do anything about it. Okay, our curse hit. So also saving throws of the other guys for a possible sun scorch and whatnot is going to be in effect. Oh man, these ogres. Maybe we can get 3. We'll see. Maybe we can get this guy here. I don't like this ogre. Maybe he could move a little bit to the right. Although I think his melee range is actually quite big. I want him to be more on this side, and I think here we can wait no more. I think we have to unleash our color spray, and let's see how effective this will be. We will retreat with Rintar, not to get caught in our own color spray, and then let's see how this goes. Okay, nice hit here. This was actually a hit of 6, so fortunately it was not a roll of 5. That of course would get doubled to 10 and would one-shot Rintar. This was a hit of 6 that would have been doubled to 12 if it wasn't for that defensive mechanism I mentioned before we went inside. So as you can see, the damage bonus was only 3 and not another 6. Okay, let's drink a healing potion immediately, and let's see the effects of our color spray. Oh, this one ogre unfortunately didn't get caught. We waited too long. However, we did catch 2 of these ogres and some of these other guys. Unfortunately, this complicates things quite a bit, because we are going to have to use sleep here to crowd control this ogre before he can wreak any havoc on our guys here. They have way too much HP to try to kill from range with our meager capabilities when it comes to our combat effectiveness. We really need to spend as much time as possible on these 5 crucial rounds to kill as many opponents that get disabled by this color spray as we can. And only then, with some kiting involved and some other tactics, we will finish off the stragglers. However, well, that's really unfortunate that we're going to have to expend this sleep on this one ogre, I think, instead of some guys at the back. Which was my initial plan, but here we cannot wait. This ogre is clearly not disabled, so let's just sleep him here, and then we'll move further. And let's, in the meantime, just start attacking this first disabled ogre right here. Oh, there was a swing that this ogre did. Whew, fortunately, it didn't do any damage, and yeah, now this ogre is still operational. The archers might have been blinded, so they wandered off. This is pretty good. This is pretty good. Let's reactivate our song on the Iris, by the way, and let's just be really careful about our attacks. Okay, this ogre, we will be able to kite him out with Rintar, I guess, once he approaches a little bit closer. But with all of the other guys, let's just attack the other ogre on the ground. And then we have to remember we have 3 orcs that are safe to kill.
Understood.
Okay, ogre. We just have to lead you out of here. And hopefully, yeah, these guys are still blinded, of course. Okay, nice. Now let's move closer with our other guys, and let's just keep kiting. Oh, this archer is wandering right in our direction. Let's approach him in melee with Galburin and try to take him out. Sleep is nice here because considering that Iris is level 2, it will last for 10 rounds per... well, 10 rounds, 5 rounds per level. So we do have some time on this slept ogre. He will be disabled for quite a while. This gives us time to deal with all of the other guys. And here maybe Rintar can do a hit on one of these disabled guys. Okay, nice.
Orders?
We are doing some damage. Okay, nice. Rinty. That was a good hit. Okay, let's finish off this orc, and this elite orc started shooting us, so his blindness wore off. Let's try to Sunscorch blind him with our second Sunscorch. And I think that is it. I was expecting yet another orc elite to be still in the battle, but it seems like it is not the case. So we just have one ogre, one of these guys, and let's here use this Smite Evil. Didn't quite finish him off, although it did do 6 damage, so now just one dart hit should finish him off while he's still blinded. Alright, nice. We have a level up for Asathi. That's covered by her dart symbol there. She was the closest to leveling. Okay, that slept ogre is still inactive there, and we can just avoid this ogre with Rintar, his defensive tactics, his avoidant stance. And if you guys ever want to connect with some hits, that would be nice. Alright, and now let's just position ourselves and let's just do a big sword hit on this ogre. Alright, and now that he's up, well, big hit for 4 damage, huh? I was counting on a little bit more, Rintar. Alright, now let's just finish the deal here. Okay, finish the deal from well outside of his range, Asathi. And I have around 30 hit points, I think, these ogres. Whew. All right. We yet live. We have done it. Whew. That is nice. I am so glad that we got through this place unscathed. I was totally preparing... Okay, we looted everything there. I was totally preparing for some casualties in this last fight, but fortunately, we don't even have to pay for a resurrection at the Temple of Tempest. Everything is going to be fine. So here, I'm just going to use some quick loot to identify where the main ogre fell. Okay, let's see where this node is. It was apparently... That guy? No, that guy has... Okay, this guy. This is the normal ogre that's always active, even on core difficulty, the boss ogre. I think he's slightly tougher. I think he has slightly more HP than the bonus ogres. So he has a note for us that I think we will inspect in the next episode, because this one has gone on for quite long. But the 3 bonus ogres each have a Winterwolf pelt. And that is significant because, you know, with the Winterwolf pelt that we have acquired in East Haven, that makes it 4, and there's also one in this chest, which makes it 5. Precisely the amount we need. And, you know, maybe Iris, you can pick up those. You have some carrying capacity to spare.
Here.
We get another healing potion, which is nice. Okay, these weapons maybe Asathi will carry. These short bows will go to somewhere else. I'm going to rearrange those weapons so we can sell them in bulk, of course, before we make our transactions. But just to finish the looting process, just to make sure... These Morning Stars are also quite heavy, and they only sell for 3 gold, I think. So we'll see about our carrying capacity. But yeah, in this last chest we get Horror, a level 2 Fear spell, and that 5th Winterwolf pelt, and that is it. So maybe you can get these Morning Stars. Let's see, what's your... Okay, you're a little bit above what you can. Alright, everyone is actually not encumbered, and we can just now be at peace with our victory here in the Orc Cave. And let's celebrate with this level up of Asathi. So of course, aside from some static benefits, she's going to get another spell memorization slot. Of course, the big deal that hasn't treated us so well this playthrough is the fact that she is going to roll from 1 to 8 hit points now on this level up. So our level up so far has been 1 hit point, 2 hit points. Well, maybe let's go for 3 now. Let's go, game. What can you give us? Whoa! Whoa, I did not expect that. Here is where the game decided to redeem itself. Like, you know, I would have traded a bad HP roll here for that Girdle of Beatification or that Ring of Protection. I still can't get over that. But wow, the maximum. I certainly didn't foresee that. Jeez. And of course that level 1 memorization slot. Very nice. Alright, and now this is going to be it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you weren't as nearly as nervous as I was about these encounters. But now we get that sense of relief. So thanks for watching again, and I'll see you next time.